Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode number 157.
That's right.
It's on the docket today.
Yeah.
And we're here to give you guys the weekend preview. Holloway versus Rodriguez, Bellator 271. But your two favorite guys are here, and my favorite guy is technically to my right, but to your left, Dominic. What's up?
Noah, yeah, I was just so ready to hop into the studio today and talk about these fights that are coming up this weekend. We're back down to earth a little bit. We've had two back-to-back banger pay-per-views in a row. But I got to say, this card may deliver some goods too, so I'm excited to talk about it. We got a bunch of fight announcements, one very big one in specific that we're going to discuss. It's going to be a good day. It's the weekend, baby. It's Friday. Let's kick it off the right way. Noah, how you doing?
Well, let's just start by saying we're recording this on Veterans Day.
Yes.
But it's being released the day after, so just want to give a shout out to all the men and women who have served in this country. Me and Dominic have had plenty of family and friends who have, and obviously I'm sure you listening or watching, you have as well. So good stuff there. Good day so far. I did have a bit of a discussion with a friend of mine. They were asking about our podcast. They were asking about the name of our podcast.
Oh.
And I thought this might be something to start the episode off because I think there's a misconception.
Okay.
I think there's people that are misunderstanding our name.
So let's let them all know right now.
Because the podcast name is the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. The misconception being, Dominic, me and you are not the Joes. Like we are, but we're not.
Well, yeah,
like
our names aren't Joe.
Well, correct. What they fail to understand is if you look in the title on, I guess, YouTube, if you go to our YouTube channel, it is Joe 'S.
Right.
That means that this MMA podcast is for a below average Joe.
That's right.
That means you listening, watching, you're a below average Joe.
And that's something to not take offense to. This is a very broad, welcoming, warm community, people.
Exactly. We are below average Joes as well. We're not the below average Joes. We are no better than you.
It is all encompassing.
We are all on an equal playing field here. We are simply the ones that decided to start recording ourselves talking about MMA, but our opinions are no better than yours. So
that's right.
That's what this community is for. But I just had to get that out there because just some misconceptions about the name.
Yeah.
And I just want it to be clear that this is your podcast.
Yes.
Not ours.
No.
Anyways,
for the community, baby.
Fight announcements.
All right.
Start with November 20th. That's next week. Can I just say that trying to get through this week without a fight cancellation was like going through a minefield.
Yeah.
You take one wrong step, boom.
Yeah.
Sakai Tuivasa out.
Yeah.
Boom. Other fight.
That word is good. Yeah.
The only one that we're going to talk about here, though, that was big enough to really discuss, Sakai versus Tuivasa. That's right. Fight is off. It's off. I believe there was visa issues. I don't know if it was. I'm assuming it was for Sakai, but I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Because I only say that because Tuivasa is apparently being looked at for the end of the year card now, or one of the end of the year cards. But such a shame this fight's being taken off. Our November 20th card, that being headlined by Ketlin Vieira and Miesha Tate, kind of being butchered, Dominic, right before our eyes.
Yeah, it is. It's been a tough week for that card, and for this fight specific, I was looking forward to Bam Bam getting back in there for his chance to crack back into the top 10 of the heavyweight division. It might just be put on hold a little while longer. Hopefully he gets something resorted, and for Sakai as well, looking to see if he can bounce back after 2 straight losses. So, yeah. We'll see what happens with those guys. But the November 20th card, while there's still a couple diamonds in the rough, it definitely has taken a big hit this week.
Yeah, there was 4 fights that had removals, or I don't know how you want to word it. 4 fights removed, but 2 of them did find replacement opponents, so that's nice. But this card that we're previewing today had some fights fall out. It's just been kind of a messy week with fallouts. They were coming so fast, so plentiful. I was like, oh my God, we're not going to get through this week with any fights left.
We're not going to have an episode. Yeah.
But following that, we did have some good news for UFC 269. And, of course, it was balanced out by some bad news as well. But we did get a couple replacement opponents for UFC 269. Erin Blanchfield looks like is going to be taking on Miranda Maverick, the fighter. She is no longer ranked, but she probably should be. I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah.
But she technically lost a very close split decision with Macy Barber, a fight that most thought she won. She did not. So now she's the one stepping up here to fight Erin Blanchfield. I do find it very interesting that the UFC has kind of put themselves in a position with this flyweight division where they're sort of testing their biggest prospects against one another.
Yeah.
You saw Macy and Miranda fight. Macy was booked against Erin Blanchfield. She falls out, so then they book Erin against Miranda Maverick. So while in the past I've been critical of that kind of booking, or I'm just like critical. I understand it. I just haven't really been a fan of it personally. At this point, like it doesn't really bother me that much. I think it'll be a good fight. It's a good test for both. Erin Blanchfield's a bit of a wild card to me.
Yes.
Her resume is impressive for being as young as she is, but I don't really know what to expect from her. But Miranda Maverick's been on bigger stages. I've seen more of her, been in a couple high-profile bouts now. Great grappling, great wrestling. Has a lot of work to do in the stand-up. Be interested to see that fight.
Yeah, for sure.
And Andre Muniz.
Stays on.
Yep. He is no longer ranked either. Some bullshit. Anyways. He gets Eryk Anders. So Eryk Anders was supposed to fight, was it next week as well?
I think so.
I can't remember. He was supposed to fight either previous to today or sometime in the next week or two, but he has been moved to this fight with Andre Muniz. And you know what? I'm happy for both guys that they do get a fight booked, but I got to give a shout out to Eryk Anders because this man comes correct. He has been tested so many times. He does not give himself an easy path at all. I'm pretty sure if you go through his resume, this is a guy that was a D1 collegiate athlete at the University of Alabama, football player.
Yep. And
then made the transition to MMA. So he's a fantastic athlete, but had very green in terms of his fighting capabilities. The thing for him is almost every fight he has been like the underdog in the UFC. He's usually going up against someone with either a better resume or a more well-rounded skill set. And you've seen him have his moments of where he's struggled quite a bit, had some rough-looking performances, had some really high moments as well, showed some great displays of heart. Here against Muniz, just not another one where it's not going to be an easy fight. But I like both guys to stay active, and I look forward to seeing what Anders can do against the exceptional jiu-jitsu of Andre Muniz.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's going to be an interesting fight. And again, shout out to Eryk Anders. This guy, anytime, anyone, any place. That's his motto.
Yep. And why did the good news have to be balanced out? Well, our very, very high-profile bout between Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards is off.
Yes.
Jorge Masvidal had an undisclosed injury, so he will no longer be able to compete at UFC 269 against Leon Edwards. And here's going to be a big part of probably today's discussion, Dominic, because we saw a lot of people throw their name in the hat to step in and fight Leon Edwards. Some familiar foes, some people Leon's been scheduled with in the past or has even had fights with that didn't really get the conclusion that they needed, and some new guys as well. So let's just start here with this discussion by saying, what are your thoughts on this fight being out? And Maybe I'm just going to ask you straight up, Dominic. I think there's two different trains of thought going right now for Leon Edwards and what he should do.
Mhm.
What do you think Leon Edwards should do next?
All right, so first off, it sucks that this fight fell through. This is the three-piece in the soda, 2.5 years in the making, and it's delayed once more. Maybe it's just one of those fights that is not meant to be. Oddly enough, I just have to throw this out there. After the UFC 268 card at the post-fight presser, Colby Covington says, you know what? Jorge Masvidal should just pull out of that fight against Leon Scott, is what he called Leon Edwards. He said he should just pull out of that fight. This is clearly the fight to make, and we'll do the Ultimate Fighter together and fight each other. Well, less than a week later, Jorge Masvidal does, in fact, pull out of this fight. And now I'm not going Eddie Bravo here and saying when you look into it. I'm not doing none of that. I'm just saying it's a little weird. That's all.
You're just saying when you look into it.
You know. But, for Leon Edwards, okay, man, this guy can't catch a damn break, whether it's his fault, his opponent's fault, the world's fault, COVID's fault. This guy can't catch a break. It happens here again. So what do we do with Leon Edwards? Well, he tweets himself when this fight falls through yesterday, when we're recording this, saying, I knew this was going to happen all along. And, Jorge doesn't want none of this work, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take some time with the family. Kamaru Usman, I'll see you soon. All right. Well, I want to see Leon fight for the title just as much as the other guy, the next guy. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen here, Noah. I really don't know, because first off, Kamaru Usman just went 5 rounds with Colby Covington in one of the best fights of the year. I'd say he's out until at least, what is it now, November? I say we don't see him at the earliest April of 2022, if not later than that. I foresee a long layoff for him. The way he acted after the fight, wanted to be with his daughter, take some time away.
Yep.
Does Leon want to sit out that long? And in return, it would be another full year between Leon Edwards fights. He fought Nate in May, right? Or was it June?
It was June.
June. So damn near a year, depending on when that fight would happen. So, yeah, I mean, if you want Leon, try and sit out. But according to what Dana's been saying lately, he's not too big on people sitting out waiting for title shots. I think the UFC is going to try as hard as they can to keep Leon on this card. And I think they're going to try as hard as they can to rebook a fight that Leon has had scheduled before with none other than the biggest hype train in the UFC right now, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, does Leon Edwards accept that fight? I don't know. It's looking like that he won't. From what I'm seeing with these reporters and what he tweeted, it doesn't look like he wants to fight. Usman is his priority. But is the UFC going to force his hand? Are they just going to pass over him? That's the biggest question I have here. So if I'm Leon, as much as it sucks that this happens to you and that you should just get the title, maybe you should stay on that December card. And maybe it's not Khamzat Chimaev, but I damn sure think that's what the UFC wants. And that was the first option I sent in our group chat on the Twitter DMs to say that's what should happen. And I'm going to stick to it here, Noah. There's a little bit of history there already. It's a badass fight. They need something to be the featured bout on that card. Khamzat Chimaev, Leon Edwards is what I would do.
Really? I'm color me shocked. You're Mr. Leon should just be given the title on a silver platter.
I know. It hurts. It pains me, Noah.
Sorry, you're not even one of the bad ones. So let me refocus my.
Thank you.
Let me refocus here. To anybody out there who is saying like Leon needs to not fight in December, and he has earned his title shot. He deserves it. They might as well just make him another belt and wrap it around his waist and blah blah blah. I mean, my God, they want this guy to be just given, a fucking steak dinner while somebody's fucking massaging his feet and stuff before he fights. I mean,
that does sound nice.
Gross. Anyways, and I'm just not in that camp. I can't look at this guy's resume, and everybody wants to talk about a win streak, and I get it. He hasn't lost since the last time he fought Kamaru Usman. That's impressive. That was back in December 2015. So he hasn't lost since, and it's a good win streak. But if you look deeper into the names on this win streak, it just doesn't quite hold up anymore. Like, yes, Vicente Luque is a win on there.
Yep.
But this is Vicente Luque before he was the number 5 ranked guy in the world.
Right.
This is, again, Vicente Luque back in March of 2017, unranked fighter. The wins that matter on this win streak, in my opinion, is the decision win over Donald Cerrone.
Mm-hmm.
That was Donald Cerrone right before he kind of went on that dad Cerrone run.
Yeah.
So, good win, but this is journeyman Cerrone in a way. Follows that up with a split decision win over Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson, good fighter, but if you're a championship contender, probably shouldn't go to a split decision with Gunnar Nelson. Follows that up with a unanimous decision win and the most impressive win on his resume up to this point against RDA Rafael dos Anjos.
Yeah, for sure.
And the problem with that is a lot of people think that that's the fight that earned him a title shot. And there is an argument to be made for that. That fight happened in July 2019. Problem is, if you look at the history for RDA at that point, like what his resume was looking like, we all know RDA is a better lightweight than he is as a welterweight, but he's still, I think, a bit underrated as a welterweight. He was a damn good fighter in that division.
Oh, yeah.
And that's made more clear by the fact that before this fight, RDA fought Colby Covington for the interim welterweight title. Colby won that fight, and that was supposed to propel him into a high-profile bout for the title with Tyron Woodley. Obviously, that didn't happen. But then after that, RDA fights Kamaru Usman. Usman gets a big win over him, and that propels Usman into a title fight with Tyron Woodley. Mm-hmm. So you see Colby and Usman beating RDA is what got them a title fight.
Right.
But you have to understand RDA is at this point, by then, taking 2 losses back-to-back. He gets a win over a debuting in the division, Kevin Lee, and then follows that up with another loss to Leon Edwards. So there's an argument to be made that that win over RDA could have propelled him to a title shot. But I think since you already saw it 2 times previous, too little, too late. He needs one more fight. Well, he was booked next in March of 2020 to fight Tyron Woodley, who at that point, Tyron Woodley had only lost to Usman.
Yeah.
I mean, this is before he took the fights with Gilbert Burns, with Colby Covington, Vicente Luque, where he went on eventually a 4-fight losing streak. This is Tyron Woodley, who had lost his belt the year prior. So we really expected him to come back, and I think he still had quite a pedigree to him still. So if Leon would have won that fight, and I think he would have, considering what we've seen from Tyron, that would have been the fight that earned him a title shot.
Right.
But as we all know, March of 2020, something else happened, and that's called COVID-19.
Yes.
That card gets scrapped. Leon ends up not fighting until June of 2021 because, well, some of it's not his fault. Let's be clear. I mean, COVID-19, and he's from the UK.
Yeah.
The UK restrictions, from what I understand, very harsh, very tough. If you're someone trying to fight, go out of the country, fight in the United States, very tough to do, from what I understand. So it was hard for him to get a fight, hard for him to probably get a training camp together. All this is where I kind of start to say, screwed by just life at this point.
Yeah.
But then, and then he does get booked for the end of the year against. I don't remember if Hamzat was the first opponent, but Hamzat's who they ended up booking him with. And I still stand by at that time. That was a big opportunity for Leon. Hamzat had a bigger name than Leon, and that still holds true today. And now the fight even makes even more sense because Hamzat's at least beaten a ranked fighter. Regardless, the fight ends up not happening. Then Leon has the fight with Bilal Muhammad. So, sorry, not June 2021. He ended up fighting in March of 2021, so a year after his bout with Woodley. Then you have the accidental eye poke, and Bilal's unable to continue. So the fight's a no contest. I mean, the list goes on and on. But let's be clear. Before his win over Nate Diaz, Leon had not had a win in a UFC octagon 2 years before that.
Right.
You can't tell me that regardless of, look, the elements, I get it. But if you're telling me that after the no contest with Bilal that he should have just been given a title shot when he hadn't won a fight in 2 years.
Yeah.
I just can't get behind that. I can't. I understand that it's not all his fault, but then he's not made it easy either because he kind of has been stingy about, at least it appears, he got removed from the rankings for likely refusing to take the Khamzat fight.
Yeah.
Eventually takes it. Then it falls through 3 times. I mean, just so much shit going on. But he's kind of lacked that urgency. Like he feels like he's already earned it. So he's kind of walking around with his chin a little high, in my opinion. Like I think it's a little too much.
Right.
Like he feels like he can't, just because he earned it in 2019 or you could have earned it in 2020 or whatever. Sorry, pal. The sport moves on.
Yep.
And this is going to be my reasoning for not wanting him to wait because, yes, I get it. Should he be fighting for a title next? If you had to tell me who's next for Usman right now, if nobody else had a fight booked, who gets the next shot? Leon Edwards has earned it more than, I would say at this point, Gilbert Burns has, Vicente Luque, Khamzat, whoever. But if Leon Edwards waits, and we assume Kamaru probably won't fight again until at least sometime in the spring, do not tell me that Luque or Khamzat cannot come in there, make a statement that forces the UFC to have to reconsider. And I'm sorry, but Leon's accomplishments, his biggest wins in the past. The Nate Diaz win was nice. But what's the most memorable part of that fight?
I know.
The last minute where where Nate nearly knocks him out. That's just the reality of the situation. So I wish that Leon, as great as he is, as good of a person as I'm sure he is, and as much as I hate to kind of feel like I'm ragging on the guy so much, I wish he was a little more self-aware of where his standing is. Instead of looking at what's fair, look at what it is.
Yeah. Waiting can hurt him more than help him, undoubtedly.
It's already hurt him.
Yeah, we've seen it.
I mean, how are you? This is a guy who already he's struggled to have any sort of support or following. I mean, there is a lot of people that are supporting him and getting a title shot, but overall, he's a lesser known, even though he's ranked number 3, his name value is less than that of Colby Covington, obviously Usman. I would say at this point it's even less than Luque, Burns.
Right.
Khamzat obviously has a lot of momentum. So waiting, not fighting until April and hoping that they book you for the fight, that's only going to make it worse.
Yeah.
And if Khamzat fights, even if it's someone like Bilal or Neil Magny in December, and he does to them what he's done in his 4 previous bouts, don't tell me that the UFC won't consider putting him in a title fight over Leon. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I look at Khamzat right now as he's 1 win away from a title. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And I would like that to be against someone ranked a little higher than Bilal or Neil.
And Vicente in the same boat. So again, as Noah said, if these guys fight while Leon waits and make a statement, they can hop the line again. You know what I mean? I think he needs to fight. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be Khamzat. There's guys looking to fight in December.
Yeah, it doesn't have
Gilbert
to be
wants to
Khamzat.
fight.
If
Vicente wants to fight.
Even if he fought Bilal again.
Bilal. They want to fight in December.
I'm not super high on Bilal. Like, he's ranked number 9, I think, in the division. Not really where I would place him, just being honest, from what I've seen. He can prove me wrong on that, but just from what I've seen, I probably wouldn't put him that high. But even if he took that fight and got the clear victory that I assume he would probably get and kind of avenge that no contest, that weird no contest he had, I would even go, okay, at least you stayed active.
Yep, you got another win.
I mean, I'd like to think that I would then go, okay, here's your title fight. But again, man, these guys aren't as far away. Like, Leon doesn't have such a lead over these guys for a title shot as he thinks that he does. I mean, if Luque and Khamzat fight each other, and let's say they have a
winner of that
fucking war.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say they have a Gaethje Chandler type fight, and Leon does what Leon does against Bilal. Who looks a little bit better? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it's not. I'm not. We can argue the semantics on if that's right or what, but it's the reality of the situation. So if I was on Leon Edwards' team, I would be pushing for him to fight in December. Now, do you fight a Khamzat? Who do you fight? Who is it? I'd probably, if I was him, I would try to go for probably Luque again. You beat him once, even though he's much improved. You're much improved. You've got a feel for him the first time. He's got an exciting fight style, so he can probably bring out a fun fight in you, and a win over him. He's, in my opinion, less of a Khamzat is a terrible matchup for Leon Edwards. I'm not saying that's how it would play out. I'm just saying on paper it's a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Luque is a better matchup for Edwards than Khamzat is.
Yeah, and Khamzat excluded, he has the most momentum between him, Burns, and Bilal. So the other three options, you know what I mean? So,
agreed.
Yeah.
Now let me get your thoughts. Ariel Helwani talked about this on the MMA Hour, and he gave a very strong quote. He's been big. He's been king of the Leon support. So that's going to explain why he feels so strongly. I mean, I'm pretty sure he thought the RDA fight was enough to get Leon the title fight. He said, if because of this, Leon doesn't get booked in a title fight, that if he were Leon, he would ask for his release from the UFC.
That's a bit much. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we want these guys to keep fighting and making money. I mean, I don't think asking for a release.
I guess I'm just curious.
I mean,
you mentioned sorry, not to cut you off. I just want to give you some direction. You were mentioning, some of these things, reasons, the elements that have prevented Leon and you can't pinpoint one. There's some of it's been his fault. Some of it's been the world we're living in.
Yep.
Some of it's been
his opponent.
Do you want to throw it at the UFC? I look at it more like just the lack of promotion maybe for him, and therefore the lack of support, I guess. There's just a lot of factors that have kind of prevented him from really getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, do you blame any one element enough to where either you blame the UFC enough to where you're like, he needs to just cut ties, go somewhere else where he'll be appreciated? Or do you think it's all about the world we live in, where it's like, the opponent's dropping out and stuff? Is that the biggest to blame? And that, he just needs to either stay active, or the UFC needs to understand the year we have COVID and that we're still going through it that we've had, and kind of just look at his resume previously as a means of giving him a fight that he's earned, I guess, prior? Or is it mostly on him and he's not as close to a title fight as he thinks he is? That was a lot of word vomit right there, but I hope I gave you some clear thoughts.
I think there's just so much drama and shit that has happened in his career that you can't just pinpoint one thing and be like, all right, that's it. He's had enough. Just be done with the UFC. I don't like that sentiment. I still think he's an amazing talent. He's still in his prime in terms of his age. And I feel like he can be a champion. I don't know if he's going to beat Usman or not, but I'm saying he has talent to be a champion. He's got the market behind him with the UK and London. So it's like leaving the UFC does nothing but hurt him even more. You know what I mean? I know that a lot of people feel he should get a title, Ariel excluded. And again, if he gets it, I'm not going to be angry. I just don't think that should come next, and therefore he should stay active. But asking for a release, and it's just like, I don't know, man. Do you really want to do that? And then is that a good look going into free agency? I mean, yeah, Bellator and PFL would be all over a guy like Leon, but it wouldn't feel the same with him over there. He belongs with these elite guys, and it's just a matter of fighting all of them and being tested. I don't like asking for a release. He belongs in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree. And one last point before we move on. Let's say Leon doesn't take the fight. As stacked as UFC 269 is, I would kind of argue that you could probably still add another big fight now. So let's say Khamzat is probably the likeliest of options to take a fight in December. Who would be your ideal, based on the amount of interest you've seen from different guys and the matchups ahead? Which fight do you think would be most likely to occur with Khamzat for December?
Well, for what it's worth, Khamzat's been on one lately on Twitter. This guy, get him verified, by the way. What are we doing here without the blue check mark? But
this man's coming after the Paul brothers. He's
yeah,
going after everybody.
Yeah. So obviously, if the Leon fight doesn't happen, I still think we're going to see Khamzat on this card in December for sure, but hopefully on the UFC 269 card in a featured bout. And Bilal responded to Khamzat, said he's down. Gilbert responded to Khamzat and said he's down for a scrap. So either one of those two makes sense. I'd love to see. I want him specifically with Luque, but maybe Luque just wasn't on Twitter yesterday or something. I didn't really see anything from him. So if he fights Bilal, all for it. If he fights Gilbert, I'm even more so for it because it launches him right in there.
Please give me Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat.
That's the one you wanted. So either one of those. But yeah, I said this off recording. I said it last night in the group chat. I'm going to say it again for all of our lovely Joey community to listen and hear. I think we're going to see Khamzat Chimaev fight somebody at UFC 269.
Yeah, I think the likeliest fight is going to be Bilal Muhammad or Neil Magny.
Yeah, I forgot about Neil Magny too.
But I want to see Gilbert Burns so bad. Please put that into my veins right now.
And if it's not Luque, I want to see him fight Gilbert Burns too.
Honestly, though, like Gilbert Burns versus Vicente Luque could be added to that card. Put two of these five guys.
Any of them that are available.
On the card. Put four of those five guys that want to fight on that card.
Yeah, let's do a tag team match or something.
Moving on from there because we talked.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah. A week later, December 18th, our last fight night of 2021 gets a pretty big lightweight fight. It's going to be a fight that's going to get slept on.
Yeah, but I love this fight.
But you got number 11 Diego Ferreira, who is still slept on in general and still quite the talent.
Thank you.
He's going to be going up against Mateusz Gamrot. And Gamrot, he should be talked about more in terms of an emerging talent in this talent-heavy, honestly, lightweight division. Gamrot's the one that had he had to fight with Jeremy Stevens, where it took him about a minute to get, I think it was a Kimura. He looks fantastic. This guy looks like he's going to be a problem. And it's going to be interesting against Diego Ferreira because what he did against Jeremy Stevens, he ain't going to be able to do against Diego. At least I would assume.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
And Diego's also a big guy for this lightweight division. So going to be an interesting bout here where you got two bigger, grapple-heavy lightweights. And, Diego has the better resume, but Gamrot's so just hungry right now. So anything I'm missing that we should expect from this one?
No, I think this is an amazing fight, and I just wanted to say I view Mateusz Gamrot in kind of that same boat as Nasrat Haqparast, and they launched him in there with Dan Hooker. He obviously fell short, but that was a huge jump. Now we're launching Gamrot in here with number 11, Diego Ferreira. He's very overlooked. As you said, Noah, this is not an easy fight for Gamrot, but one to really put his name out there with this stacked lightweight division.
And then the last one, February 19th, two guys that have been struggling to get their fights to go through in this fall season, especially Kyle Daukaus. He had the fight with Kevin Holland with the accidental headbutt. They tried to rebook it for this card. Kevin Holland had to fall out, and then Daukaus was supposed to fight Roman Dolidze. Dolidze falls out. Daukaus just can't seem to catch a break and get in a fight. Julian Marquez was supposed to fight
Jordan Wright. Yeah,
the Beverly Hills Ninja, right?
Yep.
That fight literally got canceled the day of the event, I'm pretty sure, because we talked about it on here. So now Julian Marquez and Kyle Daukaus have been booked against one another. I love it. Personally, I think it's a great fight. Actually, I probably prefer it over their two previous matchups, if I'm being honest. Jordan Wright and Julian Marquez was a great fight. But I don't know. Kyle Daukaus, Julian Marquez, still just as good to me. Two guys that I need to see a full clean performance from. They've had some good moments. They have a lot of potential. But, Marquez had his biggest win in a comeback, in a come-from-behind victory over Maki Pitolo, one where he lost almost the entire fight before getting that wicked submission off towards the end of the third round, and then he gets on the mic, Miley Cyrus, will you be my Valentine, blah, blah, blah. While Kyle Daukaus had the So he got beat down a little bit by Phil Halls. Then they tried to book him against Kevin Holland, and I don't know how that fight would have went if the headbutt didn't go down. I don't tend to think that Daukaus would have won that fight, but he's a good grappler. He's very slick, he tangles you up and is able to drag you down. But it'll be interesting to see because Marquez is just a brute of a man, and Daukaus doesn't wear his weight like that. So interesting matchup.
Yeah, for sure. And the winner that likely gets top 15 next. They clearly already gave it to Kyle with Holland being number 14. So yeah, I think so. I really like that matchup.
Yeah, I think it'll depend on how yeah. But again, that's kind of where that is the reality. Two guys that Kyle. It might help that his brother Chris is doing big things, but Kyle, to his own credit, has done pretty well for himself too.
Yep.
Marquez obviously had a pretty big moment in 2020, and he needs to kind of. He didn't really get much of a chance to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Bellator 271.
Here we are.
And truthfully, this headline kind of says it all because the two fights we're talking about, the odds are not stacked and the underdogs favors. Same with our UFC main event. There's some if y'all just have some extra money in I ain't giving betting advice. I'm just saying it might be worth your time to at least look at some of these underdogs because the odd makers are putting some crazy odds on these underdogs. But the Bellator women's featherweight title is on the line once again. Cris Cyborg, I believe this is her second appearance in 2021. It might be her first. I honestly don't know for sure. She's going up against number 5 ranked Sinead Kavanagh. I believe she's from Ireland.
Yep.
I know she trains a little bit with Conor McGregor. Or teammates with Conor McGregor, I guess. So, question up front, Dominic. We know a lot about Cris Cyborg, how dominant she's been outside of when she's fighting Amanda Nunes.
Of course.
And don't know a ton about Sinead Kavanagh. So I guess the question up front is, what does Sinead Kavanagh have to do to make this a fight that she can win?
Man, that it seems like, especially in these Bellator cards and with some of these women fights in particular, we're like, what does the opponent have to do? We asked that about Valentina, right? When you have these dominant champions, you can only talk about the greatness of the champ for so long, and it's just like, all right, what's their opponent going to bring that's different from everybody else? And truthfully, it's not like I've seen much of Kavanagh here, but she's 4-4 in Bellator. She's experienced. She's got 4 finishes out of 7. She is on a 2-fight win streak now. She's number 5 in the featherweight ranking. So it's like, what can you do here against Cyborg? We know that Cyborg has the power on the feet. She's an incredible boxer and striker. Then in her last title defense, or not that one, but the one before that, she had her first ever submission victory of her career, and she's 36 years old now. So she literally is just a finisher in all aspects of the game. She continues to get better, even though she is 36 years old. So can Kavanagh bring something here that she hasn't seen? No. Cyborg has been in there. She's done that, and she's seen it all. And I'm not saying that an upset cannot happen. It's combat sports. We see it quite often, truthfully. But one this size is very hard. This is the biggest step up for Kavanagh in her career, undoubtedly. It's not even close compared to the rest of her competition. Go out there, make it a freaking fight, and see what happens, right? I mean, Nunes and Cyborg, when Cyborg lost last, we saw her get into a firefight, and she got knocked out. Well, maybe that's your best bet here, because I just don't know if Kavanagh is going to come in. Can you grapple Cyborg and be stronger than her? Not many people are stronger than Cris Cyborg. There's just not much you can do. So go out there, make it a brawl. Let's see what happens for Sinead Kavanagh.
Yeah. She might want to sit this one out.
Oh,
No,
boy.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, boy.
No, I'm just kidding. I want to give her some respect here, but it's just hard because on paper, there's nothing that, in my opinion, she really offers that Cris Cyborg doesn't at least have capabilities in. Yeah. She is so just technically brilliant and has so much power and doesn't seem to be slowing down that I don't see where Kavanagh finds the opening. But obviously, it's an MMA fight. Anything can happen. I guess my one contribution to this discussion, outside of just saying what we already know, is the reality is that Cyborg is 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When is Father Time going to start to chip away, if it hasn't already, at the legend that is Chris Cyborg?
Right.
She's not going to be excellent forever. She's not. You saw how quickly Tyron Woodley went from being put in discussions for all-time welterweights to losing to Jake Paul in a boxing fight. I mean, it happened so quick. It was like a year. It was 2 years, whatever. And all of a sudden you went from the champ to the chump a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Cyborg could have a similar fall if she's not careful.
That's true.
We saw that chin get cracked a little bit by Nunes. Can Kavanaugh do the same? I doubt it, but I'm glad to see her get a chance here. 4-4 in a division, though, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, she's fought opponents that are nowhere near the caliber of Chris Cyborg and has lost. Yeah. So it's going to be hard to really give her too much credit outside of that. But to her credit, she does seem confident. All week she's been posting some sitting poolside with her girlfriend and just lounging. And I forget what the caption was, but you could tell it was like just chilling, just another day. It's like, oh, okay.
All right,
got biggest fight of your life ahead of you, and you're just chilling. All right.
I respect it.
Yeah. Also on this card.
Hey, now.
Erin Pico and Justin Gonzalez. Erin Pico is back. I'm happy because Erin Pico, he seems to finally have turned a corner. He seems to have figured it out. He seems to be beginning to put it all together. Yeah. This guy was at one time looked at as the biggest prospect in mixed martial arts. He was literally a sparring partner for boxing champions like Miguel Cotto. And yet this is a guy that has a very high caliber wrestling background. Mm-hmm. So insane that a guy could be potentially that talented already at this age in all aspects of MMA. But it hasn't been easy.
Right.
He's gotten to some firefights, gotten himself caught. He's been slept a couple times. He's had to fight through some adversity, but I think we're finally starting to see him put it together here against Justin Gonzalez, who is a decent-sized underdog. I want Pico to put on a showcase. That's what I need at this point. He's won some good fights. You know, he's starting to turn that corner. He's looking better and better. But now I need him to show that he's a level above, because that's what it's going to take for me to think that he's ready for the next step.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about Erin Pico here, and I didn't know this till I was taking my notes, and it's like, Noah said he was one of the biggest prospects in MMA at a certain time. He's 8-3, right? 11 professional fights. All 11 have came in the Bellator cage. This kid has the definition of being molded by Bellator and brought into where he is today, being top 10 in the world in his division. 100% finish rate. Noah, sound the alarms, that we used to do. He's won 4 in a row, right? So as Noah said, he's finally starting to put it all together. He's an exciting guy to watch, obviously a finisher, and he finishes over half of them in the first round. He's only 25 years old. This kid has a very high ceiling. However, I couldn't help but notice that Justin Gonzalez has a shiny 0 next to his name in the losing column, because he is 12-0, 1-0 in Bellator now, ranked number 8 in the world, and the kid has been on the Contender Series and won a fight there in 2019. So no slouch here at all. Now, not quite the finisher that Erin Pico is. He's got 4 KOs, 1 submission, so 5 out of 12. But he's 30 years old, so right in his prime. He's going to be a bit larger in this one in terms of the size and reach. No easy fight here for Erin Pico, but one that if he can win, can really show the leaps that he has grown at such a young age and where he can be here in the near future in terms of title contention in this division. I think this is going to be a fantastic fight, one of the best fights of the weekend in terms of excitement.
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. I'm glad that you gave some shine to Justin Gonzalez, because I was pretty focused on Erin Pico, obviously, in this fight. But a win for Gonzalez, I mean, does just as much.
Yes.
You know, Pico, while he's got the bigger shine as a prospect, I mean, Gonzalez, 30 years old, ranked number 8. He's only had one fight so far in Bellator. But the fact that he was on the UFC's radar previously has to tell you something. And the fact that the UFC didn't sign him, likely because he won a decision and probably didn't, it probably wasn't the most exciting fight if I had to guess. I know I just watched all the Contender Series, but of course I don't remember this fight.
Right.
Regardless, I'm very excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I'm interested to see, can Pico really be outlasted for 3 rounds? That's something we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
He's been KO'd, he's been put to sleep, but it's always been quick. He's always been caught, finished.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen him be bested for 15 minutes. And Gonzalez doesn't usually have the kind of power, the kind of finishing prowess to put away someone in the fashion that Pico's been done previous.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a great fight, but for Pico, if he is to really prove that he has now, he's back on track to reaching that potential that everybody saw for him, needs to be a bit of a showcase, this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on to the UFC.
Oh, he's back.
Yep. Start with the main event. Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. Dominic acting like a damn fanboy, wearing the Max Holloway hoodie. No respect given to Yair Rodriguez.
Hey, come on now.
Dominic's the one that set those betting lines.
Damn.
But I digress. Let's talk about those betting odds, actually, and more so just those betting odds tell a good story, because right now Max Holloway's a 7-1 favorite.
That's cool.
Yair's like a 5.5 to 1 underdog or something like that. So this is the number 1 versus number 3 ranked guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it seems pretty clear that there's a lot of people sleeping on Yair Rodriguez and his chances here. But I want you to actually explain not just why these odds are maybe a little too in favor of Max, but also how did we get to this point? Where is Yair slipped up that has kind of allowed him to be such an underdog, and obviously where has Max excelled to do so?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of these underdog odds for Yair, I mean, this is going to be his first fight in 25 months. 2 years. He hasn't fought since October of 2019. And then that was all the dramatic shit that was going on with Jeremy Stevens. He won that fight via decision. Before that, they had the weird eye poke situation, and it was a no contest and stuff. So, I mean, he's technically on a 3-fight unbeaten streak here with a win, a no contest, and a win. But there's just no momentum for Yair at all. It just doesn't feel that way whatsoever. Before this 3-fight unbeaten streak, he got absolutely smashed. But it was Frankie Edgar that beat on him up pretty bad. So, again, the guy's 13-2. I mean, he's a great talent. He's 8-1 in the UFC with the no contest. So, incredible striker. We've seen the amazing things he's done. The knockout he had against Korean Zombie, I'll never forget it till the day I die, because that's one of the wildest things I've ever seen in MMA history. But Max Holloway has all the momentum here, Noah, which is crazy because he's he was on a stretch where he lost 3 of 4. Then he beat Calvin Kattar.
2 and 3 in his last 5.
Yeah. And but when he fought Calvin Kattar, he looked like the best fighter in the world because he put on an absolute clinic in that fight, one of the most one-sided scorecards you'll ever see for a 5-round bout. He looked like the best boxer in the UFC. He looked like the best striker in the UFC, and he damn so called for it during the fight by looking at the broadcast team and slipping punches from Calvin Kattar, one of the craziest things I've ever seen. So he's got all the momentum here. He's obviously a fan favorite. Yair, a fan favorite in terms of his fight style, but not a lot of people big on the guy in terms of outside of the cage, which is unfortunate. He's had the run-ins with the USADA thing and just long layoffs, fights falling out left and right. Guy can't catch a break. But he's back now. As Noah put as the title here, Time Stops for Nobody. You ain't shitting, because he's, after 2 years off, they're throwing him to the wolves here with Max Holloway. But big implications on the line, because if he can pull off the upset, he's knocking on the door of Alexander Volkanovski for a title shot.
How did you word that for Yair? You said he can't catch a break. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I find it interesting that this is the second guy who has kind of been just
Yeah.
as much at fault for their own shortcomings, and you have said both times that they can't catch a break, but really it's their own doing, in my opinion. Here's the problem with Yair more so than Leon, because I know Leon, you got a whole soup of factors, just so Yair, okay. Inactivity has been his biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his last win is over Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
And that was a good win at the time, but just look at what's happened to Jeremy Stevens since then. And I hate when people say that this is – I know you were just – not when people say this. I hate when people, like, try to sneakily say, like, an unbeaten streak as if that's, like, a big credit. When it's like, no, the reason you have to say unbeaten streak is because there's little no contest on there. It's not even really a fight. It's not a fight. That fight lasted like 40 seconds. Yair, I think I poked Jeremy Stevens. Jeremy couldn't continue. That's one of the reasons people don't like Yair, or some people don't, because he did not act very friendly towards Jeremy for that. And it was very weird. But they kind of made amends after that. They had a second fight. Yair kind of said more so it was just heat of the moment. But then, yes, you do have the USADA issues. There was that whole incident where UFC were trying for basically a whole year to book him and Zabit. And it seemed like Yair just didn't really have much interest in fighting Zabit or much want to. UFC actually released him for a couple days, brought him back, and then the fight still never took place.
Yeah.
So it's been a weird run for Yair, but he's had a lot. He's had a lot of potential for a long time. He's just never quite reached it. And inactivity has been the biggest reason for that.
Yeah.
And this actually, what I like about this headline, "Time Stops for Nobody," is it relates to both guys. Because in the reverse end, Max Holloway has been a much more active fighter. But the reason why he's even taking this fight is because if he were to, you look at the Leon Edwards and Carla Esparza debacles they found themselves in, Max Holloway should have been able to fight for a title after beating Calvin Kattar.
Yeah.
But you see what happens. The Volkanovski-Ortega fight was supposed to happen 2 months later, gets pushed off to October because they coached the Ultimate Fighter and all that. So then all of a sudden, Max is like, well, I guess I got to fight again.
Yeah.
And again, he could have said, no, I've earned it and I'm going to wait. But UFC typically, that would have given a chance for someone like the Korean Zombie or Giga Chikadze or anyone to make a huge statement and pass him up for a title shot. That's just the reality.
Yeah, and now he's staying active.
So now you get yourself in this fight. And obviously Max is coming off of one of the single greatest performances in a fight that you'll ever see. I mean, it's a masterclass performance. But if any, I think it might be clouding. I think people are emphasizing it maybe a little too much. I mean, he's looked great even on the, he's 2-3 in his last 5, but none of his losses he's looked like bad in. I mean, 2 losses to Volkanovski, and he had the loss to Dustin Poirier where he moved up to lightweight. So pretty high competition. Those wins in that time being Calvin Kattar and Frankie Edgar. That was Frankie Edgar when he was still had a chin on him, My thing here is I think we're going to get a pretty exciting striking matchup. Yair is much faster. His style is much more – there's much more movement involved than with Max. Max is heavy on the punches. He's going to have that heavy boxing style. He's going to look to cut off the cage, going to look to walk down Yair. We don't see a ton of leg kicks from Max, but that could probably be to his benefit if he used them here to try to slow down some of that movement. And the thing with Yair is, even for a guy like Max, guy that's never been dropped in his UFC career, let alone stopped.
Crazy.
But you look at a guy who was also known for their chin and the Korean Zombie, Yair's so wild, so unique that he just ducks a punch and throws an elbow upwards and all of a sudden fight over.
Yeah.
So Max does have to be careful for these kind of things. I don't think he can get away with what he got away with in that Calvin Kattar fight. He can't look at the broadcast team and
No.
start talking to them while ducking and bobbing and weaving punches and all that. Not probably going to be to his benefit here, because Yair throws a lot of spinning attacks, throws a lot of flying attacks. He's going to look to make this a very, at least I would assume, a fight more on his terms, something a bit more flashy, a bit more exciting. Max going to look to slow it down that movement, and look to just hammer him with 1-2s.
Ease him up. Yep.
And, Yair, outside of the Frankie Edgar fight, has really done a good job of not being hit. Frankie did such a good job of ground and pounding him, really.
Yeah.
He was just able to take him down at will and just pummel his face with the ground and pound, with elbows and everything else. But in terms of on the feet, sure, some guys have given Yair good fights. Alex Caceres gave him a good fight back in the day. I remember Yair has a win over Dan Hooker.
Obviously Korean Zombie.
Yes, correct. But even in the Korean Zombie fight, Korean Zombie was winning that fight before he got knocked out. I don't know what the scorecard said, but he got knocked out with 1 second left in the 5th round, if that tells you anything. So
fucking nuts.
It looked like the Zombie was on his way to a decision victory, but that was still a fight where, both guys, it was an awesome fight.
Yeah.
But not one where I would say, Yair wasn't necessarily getting wobbled, wasn't getting, he definitely took some damage, but he kind of ate it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Both guys did, and that's what made that fight so awesome, was they were landing some really hard shots. So I'll be curious to see if this turns into that kind of fight. How much can Yair kind of withstand of Max's shots? If it really gets into the later rounds, is Yair going to wear down? And once he has to slow down a little bit, if he has to start eating some punches, is he going to be able to weather it and land some of his own? Or is that power, is that precision of Max Holloway going to be too much for him? And we might even see a stoppage here.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where I don't see this ending soon. I think this is going to be a war. I think it's going to be drawn out. We're going to go into those championship rounds. We're going to find out who can dig deep. And we've seen them both do it. We've seen them both get these wins over prolonged fights with 5 rounds. Can they do it against each other here? 2 of the best strikers in this division, undoubtedly, but in different ways. This is a fantastic matchup.
There's no doubt that this fight is a number 1 contender bout, but
right,
that seems to hold true for Yair, especially because, he seems to be pretty clearly focused on this division. But I'm curious and this might be more of a discussion for Monday, but if Max Holloway wins, we all just assumed that the 3rd fight with Volkanovski would be what he wants. But is there a chance that he's looking to impress anybody else for a potential high-profile bout that's not for the title next, Dominic?
Yeah, from what we've been seeing on Twitter and even in his media scrum on Wednesday, Max clearly has a lot of options. He's saying the UFC has just been throwing options at him, and they're evaluating which ones they want to do. He's been talking back and forth with Conor McGregor, which I think we talked about on Monday. There's history there, obviously, between those two and what they've done since they fought each other years and years ago. We've obviously seen him test the waters already at lightweight for an interim belt against Dustin Poirier, who's fighting for a championship in December. Max is a guy that's always going to have options because he's a fan favorite, and he puts on showcases when he's in the cage, win or lose. He's going to have a plethora of options, I believe, but number 1 on that docket will be that 3rd championship fight with Volk.
I don't know.
But we'll see Monday, I guess.
Part of me could see him using this win, if he were to win, to potentially catapult him into something different. I don't know. Because, again, technically Volkanovski's beat him twice. Don't get me wrong. I know how we feel about the 2nd fight. And I would love to see that fight run a 3rd time. But at the same time, it's like, if Max wins, do you do it a 4th time? Do you do it a 5th time?
Right. Right.
There's a lot of – I could see the UFC maybe trying to give him other options in hopes that maybe he would want to pivot and maybe fight. I don't know if Conor McGregor is necessarily the option, but is there a chance that he might be able to go up to lightweight and take on, let's say Charles Oliveira if he lost to Dustin? Is there a chance that an
History
Oliveira
there,
fight
too.
at lightweight. You know, he does have a win technically over Oliveira, even though the circumstances are a bit cloudy on that one.
Yep.
All in all, I think there might be, as much as I want to believe this is just a number one contender fight, I don't know if that's going to hold true for Max, but for Yair, kind of crazy that this guy's been so inactive for the last few years. I think he's only fought, I think it's only 4 times since 2017 or 2018, one of the two. Either way, it's a long gap in activity. And we haven't seen him since 2019, so if that tells you anything. And for him to come in here after not fighting in 2 years and get the number one guy in the division, while I understand that's an uphill battle, if he passes, if he makes it to the top, if he wins, all of a sudden he's in the driver's seat.
Yeah. And he kind of will put himself right back where when he first came into the UFC, where he was with all that hype and momentum. It's a big opportunity.
Also on this main card, it's now on the main card. It was on the fucking prelims.
Yeah, I questioned the bout order of this card for the longest time, but it's a little better now.
We get 2 just, what do you want to call them? Firecrackers. That's what
this fight's so badass. Oh.
Miguel, Baeza, Khaos Williams. This fight is chaos at its finest. And, you know, for both guys, I'm not assuming that we're just going to get some fucking rock and sock'em robots, you know, and I'm not assuming this fight's going to be like Gregory Rodriguez and Jun Young Park. I think that there's a potential this fight won't be exactly the fight of the night or the best fight on the card, but I think you're going to see a lot from both these guys here. Both guys wanting to get back on track. They're both coming off of losses. I think Khaos Williams on a 2-fight losing streak right now?
I think so. Wait, I have it right here. No, not on a 2-fight losing streak, but he is coming off the loss.
Yeah, so they're both coming off losses. You know, Baeza had that amazing fight with Ponzinibbio.
Yeah. You
know, that was the Ponzinibbio who he showed more there, but that's a guy that's not the fighter he was at one point. So it was kind of in a way, it felt like it was a fight tailor-made for Baeza to make a big splash into the top 15. Wasn't quite able to do so. Ponzinibbio had other plans. While Khaos Williams coming off of that loss to, who was it?
Oh, crud.
Don't you have it in front of you?
No, I don't have his most
Was it?
recent
Isn't
fight.
it? No, it's Michel Pereira, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a fight that was very fun. Khaos Williams clearly lost, and for him, Khaos Williams needs to put a full performance together. He had a couple of very flashy, very highlight reel level KOs early on, and now, you know, he got tested a little bit more on the whole skill set and didn't quite pass. I mean, Michel Pereira is awesome, so no slouch. But against Baeza, a guy who's shown a lot in his hands for sure, but he has at least shown a well-rounded skill set. For Khaos Williams, I just need to see the full game. I need to see if this fight goes to the ground, how can he compete with someone like Baeza?
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, for me, and I believe even you too, we're so high on Miguel Baeza as a talent. He was undefeated before that fight with Ponzinibbio, a fight that he almost won after a 3-round war. This kid, you know, 29 years old, right in his prime. Both these guys, though, Khaos only 27. This is a great matchup, one that I didn't foresee coming, but it does make a lot of sense. I mean, they're both 3-1 in the UFC. They both have very fun fight styles, both on losses, as Noah said. So it's a big fight with big implications for their future, especially in the foreseeable future. And again, man, Miguel definitely, at least from what we've seen, we can say he's the more well-rounded guy with the more weapons and a better skill set. But if Khaos comes in there and just brings that power we're so used to, but with the more patience that we've seen as of late, he could by all means get this victory here. This is a fantastic fight, one that is under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. I don't know why. This is a great matchup.
Let's get into the rest. And I'm going to start with a fight that I have no interest in talking about the fight itself, but just what this means. And that's Felicia Spencer versus Leah Letson, a women's featherweight bout. Now, you know, no disrespect. Felicia Spencer is a good fighter. Leah Letson, this is her first fight in the UFC since 2018. So that's kind of interesting. But Dominic, what is there? Am I reading too much into this, or is the fact that we're getting another women's featherweight bout, does that mean that are we holding on to this division? What's going on?
I think it means we're holding on to the division through the end of 2021, at least, Noah. This might be a fun fight here. Felicia's obviously a former title challenger. I'm more so interested in Leah Letson here, though, because she's only 29. She's 5-1. She won that fight in the UFC, but not only is this her first fight in the UFC since November of 2018, this is her first fight in general since November of 2018. She has not fought in 3 years against someone who's been very active in Felicia Spencer, fought for the title against the best in the world. I don't know. They're making this matchup for some reason. I don't really know what it is, but they have some sort of game plan behind it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't really care about the fight. I was just curious more about the fact that, like, what are we doing? Like, are we just going to keep doing these little single women's featherweight bouts? I mean, this is Leah Letson hasn't fought since 2018, and when she did fight, wasn't exactly a great fight in general. And she doesn't seem to have, at least from what I can gather, doesn't seem to have that much potential. While you got Felicia Spencer, who's a good fighter. She has fought for the title, like you said, but what are we doing? Are we keeping this division alive? Are we going to start bringing in more women? Leah Letson is now apparently a women's featherweight that we didn't know about before. Is there more of those? Is there more women we ain't seen since 2018 that are going to come out and start fighting? I don't know. I'm at a loss on that one. Song Yadong versus Julio Arce. This is going to be the biggest. How do I word this? As Baeza Williams is the one that I think is more deserving of the shine, but this is the fight that I think is going to have the most eyes on it in terms of, I guess, potential prospects here. We all know Song Yadong has been one of those guys on everybody's radar for a couple years now. He's only 23 years old.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So talented. He's been kind of floating in the back half of the top 15 here and there, flirting with top 15, with top 10. Hasn't quite been able to stay there. And he's going up against Julio Arce, who's, I believe, 32 years old, a little older, a little more seasoned, even if the experience actually is in favor of Yadong, I believe, here. But this fight just tells – this fight could be a lot of fun, I think. Julio Arce is a guy that really does bring good performances every time out and has some pretty high finishing capabilities as well, while Song Yadong has tended more recently to play a more technical, more patient game. And you've seen that he's had a hard time clearly winning his decisions. It feels like he's kind of been gifted a lot of the decisions he's gotten over the last couple of years. You look at the run he's been on. It feels like, I think if I remember right, his last 3 fights, Dominic, I believe, are Casey Kenny. Then before that, he fought Kyler Phillips. Yeah. And then Marlon Vera, I believe, was before that at 145 pounds. He is 2-1 in those 3 bouts, but I'm pretty sure we personally disagree with every one of those decisions. And would probably
they're all split too.
The Marlon Vera fight was a pretty bad one. I thought Vera clearly won that fight at 145 pounds. He followed that with a loss to Kyler Phillips that we both thought he won, so much so that when the announcer started, or when Bruce Buffer started reading off the winner as Kyler Phillips, Dominic somehow heard Song Yadong and started cheering.
Yeah.
And then follows that with the fight with Casey Kenny that, again, I thought he lost. But here we are. I need him to do more. I need him to have a greater sense of urgency. Eventually, his luck's going to run out where he's not going to be gifted these decisions, and instead he's going to have to do more to earn them. Arce is going to really, for nothing else, maybe Arce will open himself up to some counters and some opportunities for Yadong to grapple or whatever, but he's at least going to really bring it. There's going to be no doubt whether he won or lost, but for Yadong, he just needs to go out there. He needs to earn it,
Yeah, I agree. But he needs to just make a statement. Make that statement why you're so hyped up. 23 years old. You've already had 8 fights in the UFC. Let's really see you earn that top 15 and see what this true potential could be from him here for sure.
It's a lot to ask for because he is so young, but once you've had this many fights in the UFC, I mean, your fight age and fight years, you're much older than 23, my friend. So it's about time to start seeing that potential and the resources that have probably been put into his career pay dividends.
Mm-hmm.
Also on this card, Thiago Moises and Joel Alvarez. Another, once again, don't sleep on some of these fights, man. You have some good prospects on this card. Thiago Moises, a guy that you guys should probably be aware of. He is the guy who had the headliner with Islam Makhachev over the summer. Didn't go his way, but has a good win over Bobby Green before that. Good fighter. Joel Alvarez has had less activity, I guess, as of late, but the guy who's 18-2 coming in here. I look for this one to be a drawn-out decision. I don't really know who's going to get the win because both guys seem to have a lot of ability on the ground. Probably going to be a lot of maybe who's got better hands, and that could lead to a pretty fun fight.
Well, see, this is one for me that I'm very much anticipating because Joel Alvarez is definitely the lesser-known guy. Thiago's been in there with the bigger, prominent names. Had the fight with Islam Makhachev. But Joel is 3-1 in the UFC. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Noah, he has a 100% finish rate, 2 KO TKOs, 16 submission victories. But Thiago Moises is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I don't know if we're going to see some wicked fun grappling transitions. Will they cancel each other out and be on the feet? I'm very much excited to see what will come of this and how their styles are going to clash in that cage. This is definitely one that I'm keeping my eye on very much so on those prelims. Or I think this might be on the main card, but either way. Also
on this card, Cynthia Calvillo is back after her tough loss to Jessica Andrade to open up our pay-per-view for UFC 266. She's going up against Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee needed an opponent. I forget who she was originally scheduled to fight, but Calvillo, of all people, steps up. So Andrea Lee getting an even bigger opportunity here to potentially propel herself in the top 5, but we know it's not going to be easy. Andrea Lee obviously doing most of her work standing, very good on the feet. However, against Antonina Shevchenko, all of a sudden she was a wrestler. All of a sudden
best performance of her career.
But we've seen Antonina just has had a weird UFC run, to say the least. And
yeah,
I'm not sure if that is going to be more of an outlier or something to really look into about Andrea Lee's growth with that performance. While Cynthia Calvillo's had a kind of an odd run herself, she's still shows some, it seems like the luster of her potential is kind of worn off. She was really looked at as a big deal at one point in time. It doesn't seem like that's really there anymore, even though she is number 5. I mean, she's not like she could very well earn herself a title shot at some point, but it's all wrestling. She's a fantastic wrestler, and if she gets you down, she does a really good job of keeping you there. So that's where the battle's going to come in here. If the fight stays standing, I'm going to lean Andrea Lee. If the fight goes to the ground, I'm going to lean Calvillo.
Yeah, for sure. And Cynthia, just for what it's worth, is number 5 in this division, as Noah said. I think this is a must-win for her. I think a loss here is very detrimental to her future and her career inside the UFC octagon. For Andrea Lee, yeah, she's been on skids, but very razor-close fights. Looked the best she ever has in her last one. If she comes out and wins, it's going to be a big statement for her to launch herself in where she's always wanted to be.
Oh, you said it's a must-win for Calvillo?
I feel that way, yeah.
Oh, interesting. See, I would have thought Andrea Lee might have the must-win here because even though she is coming off a good performance, a loss here, I'm pretty sure she's traded wins and losses since she arrived in the UFC. Or I think she won 3 and then she's lost 3 and then she won Shevchenko. So she's 4-3, but another loss. I'm sure if she hadn't beat Shevchenko, I think she probably might have been on the outs, but I wonder how much they really value a win over Antonina Shevchenko because, hasn't been the best of runs for her. But, yeah, I'm interested in this fight for sure. Last one. Pretty sure this opens up our entire card.
Yep.
Kennedy and Chekwu and Da Un Jung. And this one, I'm going to take the under on those round totals, whatever they might be, because these two guys are a lot of fun to watch. It seems that Kennedy is getting a bit of he's starting to get some people in his corner, some people kind of thinking that this guy could be something special. He's got the huge reach. I mean, this guy's a matchup nightmare. But if you really look into his performances, you know, he's getting pieced up a lot. And then he just, you know, whether it's because he's got that exceptional reach or because he's got good power, he finds the shot. You know, he fought Carlos Olberg, who's a teammate of Adesanya's back at UFC 259, I believe. And that was a crazy fight. Olberg looked like he had that fight won in round one. It does go to round two, and then he kind of gassed himself out looking for a finish. And then Kennedy, man, almost in zombie mode, comes back and wins that fight. Absolutely insane. And Kennedy followed it up with another similar performance. I forget who he fought after that, but so apologies for not remembering the name. But had a similar performance after that where he was kind of getting tagged, getting pieced up. He for a guy that has such a great reach, he doesn't do a very good job, at least so far, of keeping his opponents at bay, keeping them at range. He doesn't really utilize the jab very strong. But if he could find just a little bit of that, he's so dangerous at a distance. Because whenever these fights do get to any sort of distance, whenever he backs his opponents up to the fence and then he finds his range, he is deadly. These guys can't eat many shots at that range. But Da Un Jung, don't sleep, man. I like this guy a lot. This guy is going to look to get that fight up close and personal, and he's not going to back down. He's shown a good chin so far. I love this fight to open our card.
For sure, and I know you don't like this word, Noah, but I'm throwing it out there for the second time of the episode. Da Un Jung is on a 14-fight unbeaten streak, but the unbeaten streak is not due to a no contest. He had a draw. So this guy is an absolute stud, a finisher. He's going to look to bull rush Kennedy, and I think that's his best way to victory, but he's finished 12 out of 14. If he gets close, he's going to land power shots, and it's going to get dangerous for Kennedy. Kennedy, since the Contender Series hype that he had, lost that UFC debut, but has tallied off 3 in a row. He's maybe coming into his all right now. Absolute banger to start this card off.
Yep, but that's going to wrap it up here for the MMA Weekend Preview. Give us your thoughts on all these fights, anything else that's sticking out to you. And let us know, what should Leon Edwards do? Should he wait for a potential title shot? Should he take a fight in December? What should he do? You tell us.
Yes.
But we'll be back on Monday with the recap. We'll give our thoughts on all these fights we previewed here for you. And we'll be talking about my personal favorite promotion in the world, Alaska Fighting Championship, 161. I am so excited to talk about that. And yeah, until then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at DSLEE14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact, become a part of the Joey community, baby. We grow another stronger on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind just liking the video, subscribing to the podcast, it really helps. We've noticed a lot of new views over the last couple weeks. You know, UFC 267 and 268 being back-to-back weeks. Just seemed like everything we were putting out there was getting a lot of views, and really appreciate it, but would love to see you guys stick around. Some of you new folk who aren't subscribed, and the only way to know when new episodes are is for you to subscribe, hit the bell.
Yeah.
I know now YouTube's being stupid. Now you got to like hit the bell and then say, I want all notifications.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, just make it YouTube. Come on, make it simple. All right. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the bio, there is a link which takes you to the link tree, which presents you a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes,
but is not limited to.
Kind of is. The Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor. First one, leaving a voice message. Would love for you guys to use that. We did have one on Monday's episode. You saw our good friend Tyler. So if you'd like to have your voice featured on the show, whether you're asking a question, giving your thought on a upcoming fight or fight that already took place, whatever it might be, simply go to that link on the link tree and up to 60 seconds, and we'll put it on there.
Yeah, let us know.
And there's a link on there if you want to become a supporter of the podcast that just provides us with a few dollars a month, and all that money goes back into improving the quality of the podcast. But that's it. We're out. We're going to see you guys on Monday.